Right now, at this very second, look at the notifications on your smartphone. Maybe it's a stock alert, or maybe you just checked your retirement app yesterday. The numbers, they look fantastic, don't they? Green arrows, record highs, the S&P 500 defying gravity. According to Vanguard's latest 2025 report, the average account balance has hit a historic peak of $148,153. On paper, you are richer than you have ever been in your entire life. The system tells you that the fortress is strong, the walls are high, and your future is secure. But if that number is true, then why does your bank account feel so empty at the end of the month? Why does a trip to the grocery store feel like a tactical extraction mission? Here is the paradox that no one wants to talk about. While the average balance is skyrocketing, the number of people raiding those accounts just to survive has also hit a record high. We are looking at a hollow fortress. From the outside, the castle looks invincible. But inside, the inhabitants are chopping up the furniture and burning it just to stay warm. This isn't just about inflation. It is a sign of a much deeper structural rot. We are witnessing the great decoupling, where the stock market disconnects from reality and where your perceived wealth disconnects from your actual survival. Before you scroll away thinking this is just another market correction, let me ask you one thing. If the economy is booming, why are 33% of workers cashing out their entire life savings the moment they switch jobs? Today, we are going to dissect the corpse of the American safety net. And trust me, what we find inside is not going to be pretty. If you value your financial survival, you need to watch this until the end, and please, subscribe now, because the algorithm won't show you this twice. Let's cut through the noise and look at the blood on the floor. The metric that scares me the most isn't the national debt, not yet. It's the hardship withdrawal rate. According to recent data, this rate has surged to 4.8%. Now, 4.8% might sound like a small number to you. You might think, that's just a few desperate people. But think of it this way. In a crowded stadium of 100,000 savers, nearly 5,000 of them are running to the exits, smashing the emergency glass, and grabbing whatever cash they can, knowing full well they will be punished for it. Because that is what a hardship withdrawal is. It is not a loan, it is an amputation. When you take that money out early, you are hit with income tax, plus a 10% penalty. You are effectively handing nearly half of your money to the government just to get your hands on the other half. Why would anyone do that? Why would a rational human being voluntarily burn 40% of their money? Because they have no choice. Fidelity reports that since 2018, the number of people doing this has more than doubled. This is what I call cannibalizing the future. You are eating your own arm today because there is no food for tomorrow. And the most terrifying part? The system is designed to encourage this self-destruction. We have turned our retirement accounts into a high-interest credit line of last resort. But who built this trap? And why is the door left wide open? Do you honestly think it is a coincidence that raiding your retirement became easier just as the economy got harder? Enter the Secure Act 2.0. The name sounds safe, doesn't it? But hidden inside was a clause allowing self-certification for hardship withdrawals. Before, you had to prove to your employer that you were drowning. Now, you just tick a box on a screen. The government removed the friction because they knew the flood was coming. They effectively handed you a hammer and said, "Go ahead, break the glass." And why are people clicking that button? It is not for luxury vacations. It is for survival. 75% of applicants cite the sheer cost of living as their primary reason. We are seeing a massive buffer gap in this country. Millions of families have less than $2,000 in emergency savings. That is barely enough to fix a transmission, let alone survive a layoff. When the rent spikes or the medical bill arrives, the 401k stops being a nest egg for the future. It becomes the only piggy bank left to smash. But if you think your personal balance sheet is a mess, wait until you see the government's ledger. Here is where we pull back the camera and the true horror sets in. You feel broke because the system you live in is technically insolvent. On October 21st, 2025, the U.S. national debt crossed the psychological barrier of $38 trillion. But please, ignore the total number for a second. The terror is in the velocity, the speed at which we are sinking. We added the last $1 trillion in just 71 days. Let me visualize that for you. That is roughly $14 billion of new debt created every single day. We are borrowing money faster than a gambler chasing losses at 3 a.m. Our debt-to-GDP ratio now sits at 124%. That is higher than the peak of World War II. But back then, we were borrowing to fight fascism and save the world. What are we fighting now? We are fighting the mathematical consequences of our own addiction to cheap money. And unlike the 1940s, we don't have a manufacturing boom waiting to bail us out. We just have the bill. And the interest on that bill is about to consume everything. Now, let's talk about the bill that has come due. The United States government is currently paying $1.1 trillion a year just in interest. Let me repeat that number. $1.1 trillion. We are now spending more on interest payments to bondholders than we spend on the entire U.S. military or Medicaid. Think about your own household budget for a second. Imagine if your credit card interest payment was suddenly higher than your rent and your grocery bill combined. That is not a budget crisis. That is a mathematical impossibility. And yet, in July 2025, instead of hitting the brakes, Washington slammed on the accelerator with the BOOBA, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Permanent tax cuts paired with massive defense spending. It sounds patriotic, doesn't it? But in reality, it was fiscal suicide. We are effectively paying our credit card bill by opening 3 new credit cards. The era of free money is not just dead, it is decomposing. And the smell is starting to attract a new kind of predator. Enter the surgeon. In January 2026, the White House nominated Kevin Warsh as the new Fed chair. If you are an investor who has grown comfortable with the Federal Reserve always saving the stock market, you should be terrified. Warsh is the anti-Powell. His philosophy is simple: no more forward guidance and no more Fed put. For the last 15 years, every time the market tripped, the Fed was there with a pillow to catch it. Warsh? He believes that for the patient to survive, the cancer of easy money must be cut out, even if the patient screams. He is not a savior. He is a cold-blooded technician. When he was announced, gold dropped 5% and the dollar rallied. But don't be fooled by the initial reaction. That was just the market taking a deep breath before the surgery begins. The safety net has been cut. And without that net, do you know what happens when you fall? While Washington is busy printing paper to pay its bills, the rest of the world is quietly building a life raft. On October 31st, 2025, the BRICS nations launched a pilot for something called the unit. This isn't just another digital coin. It is a currency backed 40% by physical gold and 60% by a basket of real-world currencies like the yuan and the rupee. Think of it as a fortress made of solid metal, standing next to a house made of paper cards. And the kicker? It is governed by an AI CEO on the blockchain to remove human corruption. They are building a financial system where the US dollar is no longer the landlord. It is just another tenant they can evict. Why are they doing this? Because the golden rule of banking has been broken: trust. Since 2022, global central banks have been buying gold at a pace we haven't seen in 50 years, over 1,000 tons annually. China and Russia are stacking it like bricks for a bunker. This frenzy wasn't started by inflation. It was triggered by the freezing of $300 billion in Russian assets. That moment sent a chill down the spine of every nation on Earth. The message was clear. If your wealth is in dollars, it isn't yours. It is merely on loan from the United States. So now, they are trading the weaponized dollar for the only asset that has no counterparty risk. Gold is not just rising, it is fleeing to safety. And where does all this money go? It flows upward, into the new castles of the 21st century. Big tech. In 2026 alone, the tech giants are projected to spend a staggering $650 billion on capital expenditures, mostly buying AI chips to build a future you didn't ask for. We have entered the era of digital feudalism. These corporations are the lords, and we are the serfs. We pay them monthly rents, subscriptions for streaming, for software, for cloud storage, while they amass wealth that rivals nations. Investors are flocking to these stocks as a safe haven because everything else looks risky. But realize this: you are hiding in a castle that is under siege by regulators and drowning in debt to fund its own expansion. If the AI bubble bursts, the last safe place in your portfolio evaporates. This brings us to the geopolitical endgame, the Mar-a-Lago Accord. This isn't just policy. It is a desperate rewrite of the global rulebook. The era of free trade is being replaced by managed trade. The strategy is clear, yet brutal. Devalue the dollar to boost exports and force allied nations to buy U.S. security bonds, effectively paying for their own protection. The U.S. dollar is no longer a neutral utility like water or electricity. It has become a political weapon. And when you weaponize the reserve currency, you force the rest of the world to find a new shield. The global market is fragmenting, and in this new game, holding on to the old rules is the fastest way to lose. So, where does this leave you? The 401k is leaking, the dollar is being diluted, and the world is splitting in two. The comfortable strategy of set it and forget it is dead. We are entering an era where safety is not given, it must be seized. You cannot rely on a government that is drowning in debt to be your lifeguard. Real resilience now means understanding liquidity, understanding hard assets like gold, and realizing that the volatility is not a bug, it is the new feature. The theater of safety has ended, and the curtain has fallen. The question is no longer, how much money did I make, but rather, is my money actually mine? Welcome to the real world.